afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to today's webinar, Elevating Your Food Safety, the When, Where, and Why, a Brand Owner Perspective. My name's Amy. I'm a member of the marketing team at Perry Johnson Registrars Food Safety, Inc., and I'll be facilitating today's webinar and offering technical support to our speakers. Today, we're excited to be welcoming a return guest, Eric Hall of So Good So You. I'll be introducing him to you all a little later on in the presentation. Before we get started though, I want to go over a few housekeeping notes. To ensure audio quality, all attendees are on mute. However, we do absolutely want to take any questions you might have. So to ask a question, you can just go ahead and type it into the questions tab of the GoToWebinar control panel on your screen and click send. We'll try to answer as many of them as we have time for at the end of the prepared slides. The most frequent questions we get are usually, where can I find the slides from the presentation, or will a recording of the broadcast be available? And the answer to both questions is yes. The slides will be available from pjrfsi.com, and the recording will be posted to our YouTube channel, usually within 24 to 48 hours after the broadcast. All right, and this is what it should look like on your screen with the control panel. If you just click the triangle to the left of the questions tab, it'll open up a little box where you can type in your question and click send. We do encourage you not to wait until the end of the presentation. If you have questions that you think of as our guest is speaking, please go ahead and type them in and send them our way during the presentation. We're happy to take as many as you have for us. Now, before I introduce our first speaker today, I do have a quick polling question just to get to know who's in the audience today. And that first polling question is your organization currently certified to a GFSI standard? So just go ahead and choose whichever option out of the multiple choice is most true to your situation. All responses to the polls today will be anonymous, so feel free to vote however you wish. I'll give it a minute or two to give some participation from the audience on the poll, and then we'll get right on to the presentation. All right, looking like we got some good votes going on here. Thank you all so much to everyone who participated. And this is how it stacked up. It looks like the majority of people in the audience today are certified to a GFSI standard, which is always great to see. All right, I'm going to go ahead now and introduce our first speaker, and that's Paul Demarin. He is the Senior Vice President of Food Safety and Supply Chain at PGRFSI. Paul joined us last year in January and has over 35 years of experience in the hospitality, service, and retail agri-food sectors. Paul's a board member of the OFPA, that's the Ontario Food Protection Association, as well as an advisory council member with the George Washington University School of Business for their digital marketing certificate program. Before he came to PGRFSI, Paul worked for over 16 years in the certification industry with clients in sectors from food safety and supply chain to brand protection and quality. Paul has also worked for many years in management system certification, and before that, Paul was a professional chef and consultant for over 20 years. So Paul, I'm going to hand it right over to you, and you can take it away whenever you're ready.
Great, thanks, Amy. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I appreciate it. As Amy mentioned, my name's Paul, and I oversee our food safety and supply chain division here for Perry Johnson Registrars Food Safety. I certainly appreciate everyone being here, and obviously very excited to be back in the swing of delivering some great webinars for you all as well. There's a lot that we're going to be talking about today with Eric, so why don't we just kind of jump off here, and I'll go through my normal few-minute overview of our company. We have been a certification body and registrar since the very beginning, originally founded in '94 by Perry Johnson himself. And at that time, and still today, been at the forefront of the certification registration business. After achieving certification in 1995 by ANAB, the company saw dramatic growth over the years in the international arena, where we started opening up offices all around the world. As you can see, during that time, we also attained our UCAS accreditation. Perry Johnson Laboratories was founded as well, which is an accreditation body for laboratories. In 2005, PJNA was founded, and that was an organization that focused on virtual scribing and telemedicine services. In 2012, Perry Johnson Food Safety was born, and this was really as a result for the demand in the industry of food safety certification and quality standards that were primarily driven by the retailers. So we're headquartered in Troy, Michigan, but really a global company. We have offices in about 20 countries around the world and auditors in about 60 countries conducting audits today. We do many professional services across the registration, testing, and certification arenas, everything from HACCP and brand protection audits to all of the GFSI schemes, organic, and even social responsibility. So taking a look at the sectors that we work with, over the last 9 years, the history with our company, we've supported and worked with companies in every sector in the industry, or virtually every sector. That would include, of course, our retailers, the processors, importers and exporters, distribution companies, farms, you name it. We're really committed to adding value-added services for our customers. That's one of the ways that we want to be different for our clients. We have about 30 different programs that we currently support in the industry. All of our auditors are well trained and versed in the standards. They understand the rules and regulations of the country. Equally important, the language and culture as well. We have a very strong client attrition rate, which is quite low in the industry, and we're very happy about that. Now, if you take a look at our services, really we define our services into 4 key areas. As you know, 2020 was the year of COVID-19, and the certification industry at that time was deemed as an essential service, because really it gives confidence to all of the consumers, you and me included, that our organization and the products or systems or services are being evaluated against international accepted national and international standards by a competent third party. In today's market, I do think that this is even more critical. The landscape continues to change on a daily basis, if not hour by hour. There's new recalls that are popping up. Trying to navigate this landscape is very challenging for many organizations, regardless of size or scope. And so because of that, you can look to companies like ourselves or other CBs in the market for these types of services. Auditing to third-party recognized schemes like GFSI or ISO. We have unaccredited or non-accredited standards such as GMP for good manufacturing practices, good laboratory practices, good distribution, HACCP, to name a few. We work with customers and do specific auditing checklists or requirements or protocol that they have, and they want to use us to do it. And of course, we offer training for all of our standards that we support as well. This is a snapshot of the many programs that we currently support. I won't take much time here. There are a lot of different audits, as you can see, that are in the industry. Some of these are accredited, some are unaccredited. Some are mandated by retailers or government. Some are client specific. But at the end of the day, whatever your requirements are, we can work with you to support that. And then finally, we are recognized by various government bodies as well to complete inspections, such as the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, FSVP, as well as the VQIP program, which is the Voluntary Qualified Importer Program. So now these are, we have a long-standing relationship with all of these organizations. These are the accreditation bodies and scheme owners around the world that we work with, and have recognized and approved us to conduct assessments that fall under their ownership. And accreditation really gives our companies companies we work with the assurance that Perry Johnson as a company operates under the rules of accreditation and the scheme owners, and that helps to regulate us and maintain a high quality of work for our qualification and onboarding programs. It's a significant investment that's made every year, but at the end of the day, it's well worth it, because it gives you confidence that you're partnering with a respected partner. So I'm going to finish up this portion here and just say thank you again for joining us. I'll be right back with you in a minute here when I'm speaking directly with Eric. but hopefully we'll be able to see each other soon, whether that's at face-to-face meetings or trade shows. But I wish everybody a great week, and I'll pass it back to you, Amy.
Great, thanks so much, Paul. Before I go ahead and introduce Eric, I'm going to go ahead and shoot another polling question out there for you all really quick. And that next question is elevating your food safety plan part of your strategic plan or budget? Once again, all responses are anonymous to these polls, so go ahead and answer however you choose, whichever option suits your position best. We'll give a few seconds for people to participate, and then we'll move right along into introducing our guest speaker for the day. And to those of you who may have come in late, the slides from today's presentation, as well as a recording of the entire broadcast, will be available from our website and our YouTube channel, usually within 24 to 48 hours of the end of the broadcast. All right, it looks like we've got a pretty overwhelming favorite answer here. Let me go ahead and close that poll. Thank you for the participation. And it looks like 90% of those who responded said yes, but they're working to approve budget. So maybe Eric will have something to say about that in his portion of the presentation. But it is absolutely my pleasure to welcome Eric Hall to our webinar today. Eric is the CEO of So Good, So You. As a lifelong entrepreneur, having started 5 other companies prior to So Good, So You, Eric is the master problem solver who has been leading the company's quality and food safety initiative since its inception in 2014. His top-down commitment has ensured that product and worker safety has been at the forefront of decisions in a hyper-growth company. Once again, Eric, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And you can take it away whenever you're ready for your portion of the slides.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Paul, for hosting this. You know, when Paul asked me to present today and be a speaker, he asked me to share our journey as a startup, as a company that started with very little knowledge in food safety or candidly in manufacturing. But with that minimal knowledge, we had a commitment to build a world-class company. And so while this journey that we're going to share is unique to our company, hopefully the lessons are universal and can apply to your company and your role and your growth. Let me just see here. There we go. So first, a little background on our company. One slide back, sorry. For those that are not aware of the refrigerated shot category, I do not blame you or our company. It is very new. And it's, 2 years ago was relatively nascent. So our company, So Good, So You, is a category leader in a hyper-growth category. So the category as a whole, these little refrigerated wellness shots have had over 204% CAGR for the past 2 years. To think of it in layman's terms, 2 years ago, we're at about 10, 15 million in net sales nationwide as a category. And the past 52 weeks in spins, you're looking at 130 million. So really a lot happening in activity in this category as a whole. As our company, we're the velocity leader in this category. So while the category has been growing quickly, we've experienced close to 380% growth just in the past 18 months. And that was similar prior, and we're projecting it to continue in the future. And so part of our journey is making certain that we're always staying ahead of worker and food safety. More importantly, not just where we need to be for operations, but being a few steps ahead from them as well. As a company, there's a couple of things we're really proud about. We are woman-owned. My wife and I started the company, and we are committed to sustainability. It's true in our DNA. So our manufacturing center is actually a zero-waste manufacturing facility. We're powered 100% by renewable energy. And last year, we were the first to bring an accelerated biodegradable bottle to market that we coined the Better Bottle. It is not the be-all, end-all perfection that everyone is hoping for in consumer packaged goods, but it is the next step where it takes the normal waste of plastic that would go to a landfill and take hundreds of years to break down with microplastics, but breaks it down in under 10 years to simply water, soil, and gas. And it's the next step on our journey on our commitment towards sustainability. Likewise, besides being woman-owned, we are committed to diversity. So company-wide, we are 76% female and 40% BIPOC. With that, I will hand it over to Amy because I believe there's one great polling question she still wants to ask.
Yep, there's still one more before we get into more about So Good, So You. And that next question is your food safety plan where it needs to be today? So just go ahead and choose whichever option suits you and your situation best. All responses, as I said before, are anonymous. And as I said before, just keep in mind if you have any questions that you think of as Eric is presenting and as he and Paul are having their discussion later in the presentation, keep those questions coming in. We're happy to take them as you think of them, and you don't have to hold them until the very end. All right. Thank you to everyone who's participated in that poll. Here's how everything's stacked up. It looks like a lot of people are quite prepared, but there's a couple who are lacking in a few areas. All right, back over to you there, Eric.
Perfect. And I love these polls. Although I'm a little bit confused, to be honest. One poll, people said they're waiting for the budget to be approved. And the next one, they said that they have all the resources they need. So my hope is that through this conversation today, if you are not directly in a management or control position, we can have a conversation about how we can empower you and your company and your divisions to have those conversations with those that are in authority and control, to have valued meetings where you can present why a commitment to worker and food safety is critical, not as a short-term expense, but as a long-term investment. So when looking at our company and our journey, what I thought I would do is share kind of a high level. Oops, sorry, 1 second here. Amy, could you do a little help there? Thank you. A high level of what we have done in the journey of where we have come from and where we're going. This is not an expanse or a full list of everything that we do, but kind of a summary of things that I thought would be impactful for this conversation. The first and foremost is to go all the way back 6 or 7 years ago to 2014, when my wife and I started the company with very little knowledge of what it took to be a food manufacturer. We saw a market opportunity and we believed that there was an opportunity to build a company that could be a force for good, but we didn't really know what to do. And more importantly, we were about to make cold pressed juice. And for those that are aware, of course, juice is governed by HACCP. These were new letters to me and new letters to my wife, and we had to figure out how to do this, how to build a company, how to make juice, and how to do it in a way that complies with federal laws. And that was a lot. And so the first year, needless to say, just to get off the ground, we had to have a HACCP plan. We had to have independent third-party challenge studies to verify, because we use high pressure processing, not heat, for our products. And we needed to start learning about GMP and do self-audits. And the only way that we could do that is with the help of third parties. So we ended up, and I'm having a little problems here, sorry, Amy. Thank you. It's my fault as I'm trying to expand on my screen so I can see this. There we go. So our commitment at that time was to bring in the third parties relevant. So we brought in a consultant for HACCP, helped us understand GMP, helped us set up the paperwork, and also looked at OSHA. And we also then engaged with third parties for environmental monitoring. A couple of years later, we were fortunate, the business was doing well. We moved into a much larger facility, 15,000 square feet. And we learned that we needed to start having third-party inspections. So we engaged once again with an outside agency to come in, to look at our self-audits, to be able to see where we were doing things well, and more importantly, where there's opportunities. And then to start having annual third-party GMP audits. One thing we did as well at that time, and I believe this is probably something in every state, although it may be true only in Minnesota, we actually invited OSHA, or the inspector, to come in. They had a program in Minnesota at the time, which for companies that invited a voluntary inspection, they would come in and help you improve and give you a 90-day kind of trial to come out once again and make certain that you're meeting your commitment to worker safety. And at that time, in 2016 as a relatively new company and with very little resources. It was a cost-effective way that we were able to make certain that we were complying and keeping our team safe. By 2018, our business model radically changed. So when we launched in 2014, we were part of a national movement of a large 16-ounce cold pressed juice. It was answering consumers' desires for or needs to be able to have a healthier beverage. They were looking to drink their nutrients. But by mid 2016, 2017, that product, at least as a regional brand, started to see its limits of where we could go. And so we iterated several times. But consumers were asking the question, I've been drinking my nutrients for a while, but what does it do for me? And we were able to answer that with a shot. And the great thing about a shot, it's this perfect balance of function, convenience, and dosage. And we launched that in 2018, and as I mentioned, has been our hero item ever since. But at that time, PCQI was coming out. We hired a plant manager with 20 plus years experience, and we looked at our programs and realized that we had a more diverse workforce at that time than we had prior. So the need to invest in bilingual training and make certain that all of the great initiatives that we had at a high level from the company were passed down and pushed up and supported was really important. At that time, we once again had contracted with outside help, and we had an always-on food safety consultant. So this was a monthly fee that we allocated as part of the budget, knowing that there will be questions that come up. There will be answers that we need, that we just need to make certain that our team have the resources and support to be able to reach out and get that knowledge. And of course, we continued our GMP audits. Last year changed everything for so many companies, and it definitely did for ours. We introduced a high-speed line. So if we were having this webinar a year ago, you would have described our process of making these wellness shots as artisanal, I think is the marketing term. Manual would be the manufacturing term. We would have 5-gallon buckets of these shots, and our team was manually filling and capping close to 30,000 of these a day. We knew that wasn't sustainable. We knew that we were unable to continue to grow and scale for the demand that was happening for our company and the category. So we invested in a custom-built line designed 100% for this. But if anyone's gone through that sort of a transformation, you know that over the first 90 to 180 days, you've changed every system in your company, every process, every SOP, and that takes a heck of a lot. But at that time, we determined that what was necessary is a couple of years from now, we knew that we would want to be able to continue to invest in better practices than what were needed today. And so we immediately took that change as an opportunity to do more. We started learning more about SQF. Formerly, I believe it was level 2, now food safe, with the goal that by 2021, we could take this one-time change and use it as a catalyst to accelerate our internal knowledge and best practices. We also look at all of our documentation. And just like the process for making our products was very manual, same with all the documentation. Yeah, we had books and we had binders and we had everything like that, but there wasn't really redundancy if something happened to that. And so we looked at an electronic process, both for the redundancy, but also for the ability to be able to efficiently pull, track, and manage the increasing level of documents that we needed, and each of you probably need, to manage your business and to protect worker and food safety. We had invested in additional challenge studies. As our companies grew, our SKU count grew, we wanted to make certain that we had unique challenge studies for any product that we have in market. And we also invested in visual management for the first time. Again, going back to that ever-increasing workforce that is bilingual, how can we support them to really understand, not just through a one-time training or reinforced every week through updates or monthly through updates and trainings, but how can we help them every day understand the importance and the weight of what we need to do as a company to protect them and food quality. With that, we brought in a ton of experts. We had SQF people helping us. We had OSHA consultants helping us. We had consultants helping us, obviously, for the line and the efficiencies, right? And of course, we kept the same standards that we had before, always on food safety consultants, and of course, our GMP audits. As we go into this year, we know that our production is going to continue to increase. The demand for our product, we are incredibly fortunate, is really strong. And so we are forecasting for the next 3 years very, very healthy and aggressive growth. But with that, we want to make certain that while our production is looking at 2 times increasing any 6-month period, our food safety has to stay 2 steps ahead of that. And so we're looking at this year going through right now the SQF Food Safe, which hopefully will be complete in the next 2 months. We hired a QA manager, so we not just have shift leads, but we actually have a full department starting for that. We've automated the bilingual training software that we rolled out before. And with that, again, you're going to see the very standard thing. We don't have all the knowledge ourselves. So what do? We call in the experts who can help us, right? SQF, SOPs, and policies. And I will say, I believe Paul's company does this. I'm sure they do it very well. It helped our company so much. Anyone who's gone through SQF knows that there are a ton of additional documentations and policies that you have the opportunity to create to ensure that you are protecting food safe, or making food safely rather. But that's a lot. And the reality is that if our team had to create all of them on their own, they may have taken their eyes off of another goal that's important to the company. And so being able to have a third party come in and say, we're going to help you write the playbook. And then we're going to help support you over the next 30, 60, 90 days to audit, to bring in those processes, the best practices to the company, and then a couple of months later come in and help with the audit. Of course, an SQF audit is now going to replace our third-party GMP audit. So we'll bring in consultants for that. We have consultants for OSHA. We always have our food safety consultants on, and we have the training software. As we look into the next 2 years, again, projecting and knock on wood, hopefully leaning in for aggressive growth. We know we need to stay ahead. So we know we're going to bring QA leads and building out that in-house department. We're looking already at having in-house environmental monitoring. Some things, as you know, are best done perhaps outside of your plant, but there's some things that you can add higher frequency if you do in-house. And then we're also looking at Kaizen, or a Six Sigma or a Lean, depending on which version you like, but ways that we can now as a manufacturer take that next step that some of you may be looking forward to, or some of you may have under your belt already. And of course, SQF audits, always on food safety and OSHA consultants and lab consultants. And then for 2023, adding in that food scientist, additional QA leads, and additional consultants coming in. The goal of showing this to each of you is to see how we have strategically built and layered on what otherwise as a startup can seem very daunting. But the big initiatives are all done hand in hand with qualified experts in their field that have helped elevate our status and support our team to being the best. When I think about kind of what are some of the best practices that go into our strategic plan, has to start with a top-down commitment to be world-class. You want to be the best class facility. So you want to also view food and worker safety as both the right thing to do and a financial risk mitigator. And I mentioned that earlier. And if this adds value to your conversations with people, great. If it not, just forget it. But I think many people look at initiatives as worker food safety as a necessary evil or a part of doing business because we're a food manufacturer. But the reality is that any decision maker should look at this not just from a pride of being able to make food in a way that is safe, but also on a financial level. The goal that we have of always staying so far ahead of where our production needs with food and worker safety is a very dollars and cents one as well. Being able to reduce the risk for recalls, being able to reduce the risk for worker injury, being able to reduce any of those things that are not a problem until they're a problem is just good business in my sense. And hopefully any organization also sees that as well. Being able to plan for growth, regardless of what your growth pattern is. All companies are either moving up or moving down, and I hope each one of your companies is going in the right direction. But making certain that you have the redundancies in planning that what if something goes faster or better than you thought it would? Is your food safety plan ready for that? Is your worker safety plan ready for that? I know it's easy to think that the production and operations team on their strategic plan is 100% on track of what they need to do, but occasionally there's some wild cards where business demands, consumer demands, pandemic happens, where things shift in such a drastic way that if you did not have that contingency plan, you now are rushing and playing catch up as opposed to enacting a plan and seeing the progress. With that, again, this is our ethics. This is how we run our company, but we try to keep food and worker safety 2 steps ahead of any operational plan. Finally, you don't need to know everything. As I mentioned, we did not when we started this, and there's still a wealth of information that I do not know, that our team does not know, but we freely budget and pull in experts to add value that accelerates our process and allows myself and the team to stay focused on what is necessary while growing in their career and supporting the company. And remember that you're not in this alone. Any food and worker safety program, while supporting at the top, candidly has to come from the bottoms up. Every person in your company has to feel that commitment from the top, but has to know that your team needs to be empowered and educated to be decision makers at their levels. The only way that you're going to be able to control, or at least should I say, the only way that we've been able to control worker and food safety is knowing that every single worker, every single team member in the plant is a decision maker. They're empowered and supported to make decisions that protect their safety, their colleagues' safety, and food safety. And in order to do that, we always start with the why. Why something is important, why is something needed, as opposed to the what. And with that, I will hand it over to Paul.
Thanks, Eric. That was amazing. I really appreciate your perspective and your take on it. I mean, it's no wonder that you're in, 5,000 stores now? I mean, the brand has just exploded off the chart, and I've had the opportunity to have it myself. It's amazing, and I really appreciate you and everything that Rita brings to the market. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get into a couple of questions that I have and that I would like to pose to you, and then we'll pass it back to Amy to open it up for some audience Q&A. But just to get things started, Eric, was there a time that you wished your food safety plan was further along, in the beginning?
The answer is yes, and it's a learning opportunity. As a food manufacturer in a category that's on fire, we were approached early on about private label opportunities. And anyone who does private label or contract manufacturing knows that 99% of all of that, at least in my experience, needs SQF2 or food safe. And we were not ready at that time. And we had to say no. And candidly, that business went to one of our competitors who was further ahead and prepared as a manufacturer. And so I think the lesson from there, and we've learned this hopefully as a company, is that sales, well, there's 2 things to that. First of all, being able to realize that every opportunity has a cost is an important one. And so the right decision for our company was to keep stepping along on the journey we were doing and not to chase a tangent at that time of private label. However, I will say that as a business owner, it was very hard to say no to an opportunity with a very large customer that could move the needle significantly on the revenue side, for me to be able to say, sorry, we just don't quite have that yet.
Interesting. It's a very interesting take on that, because I often run into that myself on the certification side, where a client will want to become certified and they want to be certified yesterday. And through discussions that we have with the client, we determine that if they were to do their audit as quickly as they want, they would fail. And even though it would end up bringing in additional revenue for the company, I often push back on the client and tell them to slow down, take a look at your business, make sure you're ready to take it to that next level, because you only have one chance to get this right. And if you move too quickly, you're going to run that risk for sure. So thank you very much.
That's true in food safety, and it's true for my experience in so much of business, in the sense that you have to really step back from any opportunity and have a holistic approach and say, how do you set this up for success? Right? If you are pitching to a large Kroger or a Target, and they're coming to you and they're saying, hey, I can do a 40-door test, that's great, but are you ready when they say we're taking you to 1,800 doors tomorrow?
Right.
And when I say ready, that's not just from the production capacity and the supply chain and the redundancies you need, all of that, but it's from that food and worker safety level, that are you ready to flip the switch, or are you going to drive your team and your company a little bit crazy trying to chase after that? And ultimately, if you're doing that, you're not focused on putting your best foot forward. One thing that is true is I'm a firm believer that there's always room for product that sells well and is supported well to be on any shelf. And so kind of the challenge of any business is we all feel this pressure to go, 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 and to hop on any opportunity. But being able to take a step back and realize it's how we get to that opportunity, not necessarily the end result, that matters more.
Right. Yeah, that's Eric. What have you found to be the most effective tools that are out there today for worker and food safety? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a team. It's education and empowerment of your team. I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but no matter how robust your commitment from the top down is, the reality is unless your CEO or whoever you are is in the plant making the product every single day and doing every single thing in the, doing every position, there's no way that it's going to be as effective or as safe as you'd like it. And so it's really about educating, incentivizing, empowering, doing everything you can to inspire the team members that you have the privilege of working with every day to be their best. And that starts with, going through the extra effort of allowing them to ask and understand why. It's so easy to go in and just say, this is the way something has to be. That's great. You can make robots. People may not be that happy working there. They may not. I can't speak for that. But they won't be able to feel empowered to make a difference. And it's only when they have that empowerment over the control that they have over what they do every day, does that start to come organically from them? And that's where change starts to happen. That's where you start to see your audits improving on a major level. That's where you start seeing your team members coming forth in meetings every week about, hey, here's what I saw. Here's something that I think we'd like to be able to do. Here's how I can make my job more efficient. We can make the line more efficient. We can improve safety here. And it's only when you have that true collaboration at that level do you really see, or at least for us, did we really see the needle move in a significant way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's interesting, because you kind of just tied into my next question here. But I know through many discussions with you and Rita that oftentimes you have brought in external support to help the organization. And knowing that you have such a capable team, can you help me understand the reasoning for that?
Yeah, it's focus. We have, I had mentioned in the slides, a couple of years ago, we brought in a plant manager with 20, 30 plus years experience. And looking at everything we were going to accomplish, Steve literally came to me and he's like, I've got this. Don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of everything. We're going to do X, X, this, and this. But the reality is that especially for our company in growth, but I think this is true for any company, his plate was already full. Yes, he could divert attention from things that were impactful or meaningful every day to do this additional project on his own, and that may have been a cost savings, but the reality is that's only on a spreadsheet. The human cost of his time, of him potentially being burned out, and the errors that may happen from that, and the unseen cost of what if. What if, because a team member now is not focused on their daily tasks of making certain that our existing policies and procedures are adhered, our GMP audits and everything like that, what if that person is overwhelmed by this new large initiative that we have from the company and they take their eye, due to our fault, not due to theirs, but off of their daily tasks? And so the biggest reason that we have the biggest value that we have seen, and the reason why every year we bring in more and more consultants, is so that our team can feel comfortable learning, having the time frame where they need to develop the new processes, have all of the support they need to, while still feeling great about what they're able to do and their key responsibilities.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say is the biggest value that you've seen in this external support?
We would have never gotten where we are today if we didn't have it. It's just that simple. When I look back at the amount of support that has come into our company through so many different sources, there are many steps that we would not have succeeded, or had we succeeded, it would not have been in a way or a manner that we felt was successful. We may not have had the best program. We would not be achieving our vision or taking steps towards being world class. And so all of those things pull into how your culture feels about what they do. And the biggest value that I see is that the individuals are team members that are making this product every day feel supported. And that's not my words. We just had a employee engagement survey, and I'm very proud to say that 85.6 or something like that, 85% of all questions were answered with a very positive affirmative when it came to anything. Yes, there are opportunities that came up in that, but the point is that they're feeling and they're seeing the commitment, and they see that we are committed to making certain that that how they get to a goal is more important than getting to that goal.
Wow. Thanks very much, Eric. I appreciate that. I'm now going to pass it back to Amy so that we can open it up for any audience Q&A that we have. Thanks again, Eric, for joining me. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. It was super interesting to see everything laid out, even into the future. And I think that's one area where some businesses, they find themselves in a bit of a bind, is how do we plan for the future? All right, but really quick before we get into the audience Q&A, I do have one more quick polling question. This one's an easy one. You can choose as many of these options as you'd like. We just want to know what webinar topics you might like to see in a future webinar from PGFSI. So just choose out of these whichever you're most interested in seeing. And we do have many webinars scheduled for the next couple of months, all the way through June, on a variety of topics. Such as next Tuesday, we have the Global Director of Restaurant and Distribution Food Safety for McDonald's Corporation joining us for a webinar on food safety management systems and whether they're equally applicable to all areas of the supply chain, as well as a webinar next week with a managing partner of Gov Consulting International LLC and a former member of the GFSI board, as well as the Chief Information Officer of AgroKnow, regarding enterprise risk management, communicating risks from the shop floor to the boardroom during product crises. So let me go ahead and show off that list of upcoming webinars. All of our webinars are free to register, so feel free to visit our website at pgfsi.com/webinars and sign up for as many as you'd like. We would love to see everyone there. And now I'm going to go into the questions panel and see what you all submitted during the broadcast. I know I saw a few pop into the box. All right, and we do have a question, Eric, here, just specifically about the product.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, unlike Paul, I have not yet been able to try your products. I would love to, and I actually, as you two were discussing, I was looking up on my phone where I could find them, and they're at the Target just up the street from me. So I'm going to have to keep an eye out when I do my grocery shopping this week. Here's a question about the product from Juan Carlos. He's wondering whether the So Good So You shots are shelf stable, and if they are, what is the shelf life?
Yeah, they are not shelf stable, and they are under 100 days shelf life. Has to be 100% refrigerated. We use high pressure processing as our kill step, which achieves an effective 5 log reduction in pathogens and makes it safe for consumers with proper refrigeration. So it's always 100% cold chain, and candidly, it's a little bit of an expensive process, but we believe that our products and our consumers are worth that.
Absolutely. All right. Another question regarding So Good So You specifically. Nathan is wondering what kind of investments you plan on making in the program this year. I know you outlined some of those on that slide with the chart. I don't know. Let me see if I can swing back by that chart
Oh,
and we
it's
can
okay.
look
I've
at
got it by memory.
it. Oh, I'm
This is
sure you do.
this is part
You
of
got
the
all your
approved budget.
info
I
laid
can.
out.
So our big it's a great question. So the big thing for our company this year is getting SQF food safe. We started the process in Q3, Q4 last year. We brought in consultants to help write the policies, procedures, and SOPs. We are still continuing that in Q1 of this year with the goal that by the end of Q2, we're able to have the initial certification. With that, the other major investment that we did is that we hired a QA manager. And I'm happy to say that literally that was 2 or 3 days ago, they accepted the offer. So they'll be on board in the next couple of weeks. So when we look at the investments, it's making certain that we're elevating it to that next level, but more importantly, that we have the manpower internally to manage that. It's one thing to be able to say, we're just going to go from GMP to SQF and there's all these new documents, but the reality is it's that daily practice. And hopefully I think everyone on this call knows that. It's a daily practice that matters. And if you have a team that's already focused 100% of their time on other things, being able to add another thing on top of them, especially at this level, we felt just wasn't the right opportunity, right way to set this up for success. I will say one other thing too, and that is the automated software, which candidly, this is just a good time of a podcast. We signed up for just a week ago. So prior to this, as our team grew, I mentioned we had more and more where English was a second language. And we had gone through and we had translated key documents so they understood. We had done bilingual training, albeit through a translator where we could and where was necessary. And we had weekly and monthly meetings for updates of trainings. But we realized that not only were we reaching a size, but more importantly, our workforce was reaching a size that there must be a better solution. And so we searched out and we found a third-party software that will help all food safety, worker safety programs, as well as some other ones that are already in multiple different languages, so that we can have these as not only initial training as part of the ongoing, but then also as part of that continuing education in a documented and more robust form.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Eric. All right, we've got a question here from Alicia. And this is one I had thought of as you were talking. What if we can't get or afford a consultant? Any advice for people who can't get that third-party support that's so vital?
Absolutely. 3 things, and I've been there, I can feel your pain. First of all, reach out to other trade associations or businesses in your network. See if you can get some mentorship or some help. The great thing is that, Alicia, I'm going to assume that you're at a startup phase somewhere where we were a couple of years ago, and candidly, still feels like we're at today. But at a point where, well, let me back up and say that the great thing about startups right now is they're kind of sexy. Thanks to Shark Tank. Now, the day-to-day operations may not feel that way, but there's this kind of halo around this. And there's a lot of people that want to help. No matter where you are, I imagine there's other manufacturers that you can connect with for mentorship and say, hey, I just need some help. And if you make it a transaction where it's very clear, not open-ended, but something where you say, I need help with this. I need help with understanding GMPs. I need a self-GMP audit. Make it a very actionable ask. Have them come in and help, assuming you can find someone, and then go back to that person with the progress, because everyone likes to know that they made a difference either in their day or in their time. And I've found that if you're able to leverage that network to be able to get other people in, and you return in response by letting them know the positive impact that their time and their investment had, that's one resource that can help. You can also reach out to the state. If you have a governing body, if you're FDA regulated and your MDA, say, governed in that state, ask the Department of Agriculture, whoever else your licensing body. They are not going to come in and write plans for you, right? But they may have resources through local universities that can help. When we started, our HACCP plan was actually partnered by the University of Minnesota. We didn't have the resources or the knowledge, and candidly, we didn't know about great companies to be able to reach out to get the help, but we were able to network through our Minnesota Department of Agriculture to the University of Minnesota, and they actually had a program that helped us understand food manufacturing, understand HACCP, and help create it.
Excellent. That is great advice. All right. Looks like we have a follow-up question from Nathan. And first off, Nathan does state that he says it's quite rare to see a CEO presenting about food safety, and it's pretty awesome. So,
Thank you.
and I wholeheartedly agree. We were very lucky to be able to have you on to present with us. But Nathan's question is, how many employees do you have, and how are you, I'm guessing personally, how are you as the CEO so involved in food safety?
So we have about 40 team members right now. We will be hopefully 50 by the end of the year. So still a very small company. How am I so involved? I'm just a huge foodie. I mean, honestly, like making food for someone is such an honor. Think about it in non-manufacturing terms, right? You have someone invited over to your house. If you really like them, non-COVID, mind you, you make them a wonderful dinner. If you kind of like them, you point them to the fridge and say, get your own stuff. And if you don't like them, you don't offer them anything. And so the great thing about food manufacturing is that you have the opportunity now to be able to make a product that can make an impact in someone's day or life. But the risks are so much greater because that shelf life is extended, right? When I look at the risks for the company and when I talk about food safety with our team, when I talk about recalls or traceability, I say it's a when, not an if. That's not saying we're not doing everything we can to mitigate the risks, to make food safe as possible, and to make certain that we hold off and have that never happen to us. But the reality is the numbers are just against you, right? You are putting so much food out and you're doing so many things and so many changes that if you look at any sort of a list, whether it's the FDA recall letters that go out, when they happen, whether you look at any sort of food journal citation, none of those companies, correction, I would hope none of those companies woke up that morning and said, I'm just going to make food that's going to get someone sick, right? But what does happen is that perhaps those companies weren't thinking of it as in the sense of when, not if, and weren't thinking, how do we stay a couple of steps ahead? I've talked to a couple other brands, and to be honest, and this is where I was hoping I could add value, if anything, in this conversation, is the fact that a lot of times food safety seems to be the afterthought. It really is a necessary evil, and I said this at the beginning, it's this budgetary item, yep, check the box, we're a manufacturer. But the reality is anyone who has P&L control, anyone looking at the finances, if you can make an argument that simply states from a financial reason why this is an investment, not an immediate cost, and that it will have an ROI, which means that you're not going to have a large recall. You're not going to have a food safety issue. You're not going to have a worker getting injured. Then that hopefully resonates with them and all of a sudden gives you a defendable reason why you can be more proactive today and in the future.
All right, thank you so much. We've got a question here about, is there a particular reason why the schedule, I can go back to that slide if we have to, has Kaizen implementation listed in 2022 and not before?
Yeah, we just don't have the bandwidth. We're 40 people, we're growing quickly, and to be honest, if you think of our production facility, we went from making 30,000 units a day in buckets, which would have been up till June of last year, to all of a sudden having a high-speed line that's 300 bottles a minute. Our first thing was making certain that we could implement this line slowly and easily to gain efficiencies, but more importantly, do it in a way that was protecting worker safety and protected food safety. And candidly, that's not an on-off switch. Anyone that's installed a line knows that there's just a lot going into that, and that you're continually adapting and revising and listening and learning together with your team, collaborating on how we do this one thing well. And once we have that one thing well, then how do we look at doing something else? That's not saying that there aren't efficiencies that we look at as part of the plant, where something is stored or how things are accessed or how do we prevent that. But when I'm talking about that larger project, I'm talking about literally bringing in a specialist who has far more experience than I do and dissecting everything that we're doing, department by department, room by room, to say, how do we really optimize this now?
All right, I guess that answers that question really thoroughly. Let's see, we've got a question here from Alexander. And I think this is a great question. And I think it comes up quite a bit in all of our other webinars as well. You had mentioned food safety culture. What are some tips you have for helping to develop employee buy-in at the ground level for that food safety culture?
Sure. I'll say I don't have a silver bullet, and it's not going to happen overnight. I'll also say that language for our company, at least, has been a barrier at being able to be as successful as we would like or as quickly as we would like. But the first part is really, really robustly having a culture that listens. It's hard to have an individual siloed program. You can't exactly go into someone if they're used to having, I don't want to say orders barked. I want to say if their goal is focused on other things, where they're told what to do every day and not listen to what they can do every day, it's hard to have a dialogue that's different. However, that may or may not be within your control. Some of the tools you can have that are within your control is really trying to set what you are doing as potentially being aligned with the culture of the company, or if the culture isn't the listening one, as being something separate, right? Open dialogues with them. Have training and support that explains the importance of something, the why of something, ask questions for it, repeat it again, and again, right? Make certain that they hear that message, and then once it's embodied in what they do, ask them their thoughts on it. Ask them, what's your biggest pain point, right? What is making you as an individual what's preventing you from being your best here, of feeling great about what you're doing? The questions that you ask each team member, it's not going to open up automatically, but some will. And more people will the more you ask. And that will build a culture, at least when it comes to food safety, of trust, where they then can come to you and say, hey, I noticed this. Hey, I've got this idea here. Have you thought about this? And when you have that happen, make certain you reward that, mention that, highlight that, appreciate that person, right? It's never a negative thing. It always has to be positively reinforced that what this person did was amazing and thank you. And we look for more of that.
Absolutely. That was a great answer. Thank you so much, Eric. I think we have time for one more question here. This one's a bit long. It's got a two-part question at the end, and one part you may or may not know specifically the answer, but I wanted to read this in its entirety. This is from Iman. Iman says, it's my dream to have a business like yours, Eric. Thank you for the inspiration. I'm a food technologist with 25 years of experience working as a freelancer in a country where the currency value degraded last year. And his two-part question is, do you know how to become a FSMA certified consultant? And the second question is, and this is a very broad question, how do you start a business like yours?
For the first part, I do not unfortunately know how to be a FSMA consultant, but I bet you there's experts out there that can help you, and there might even be on this call. As for the other part, starting any business has to start with an enjoyment of what you're doing in the journey. You have an idea, right? A lot of times it won't work out. I'll be honest, this is my sixth, seventh company. A couple of them we closed the doors before they even opened. Some have been successful, but none as well as this. But the point is that the only thing guaranteed in any business is what you did today. Can you feel proud about how you treated people, the actions you have, and the integrity that you and the people around you have? Because that's the only thing guaranteed. So start with a dream, hold on to that dream, but make certain that you enjoy the journey as you do it.
That is some great advice.
And I will say I abbreviated that because I did notice we're coming up at the top of the hour.
We are at the top of the hour, unfortunately, but I will encourage anyone, if they do have further questions, or even if you want to reach out, we can absolutely get you in touch with the right people to answer any questions. If you just send us an email at pjfsi.com, or if you go to our website, there is a whole contact page of other ways to get a hold of us and get your questions answered. I'm just gonna wrap things up, since, as Eric said, we are at the end of our scheduled broadcast time. Paul, any parting words before we sign off today?
I wish everybody the very best. Have a great weekend, and thank you once again, Eric, and please give our best to Rita.
Will do. Paul, Amy, thank you so much for hosting this.
Absolutely. We are so grateful that we have excellent connections such as yourself to give such engaging and interesting presentations for our subscribers. So once again, I want to thank everyone for coming. I hope to see everyone on a future webinar. As I said before, register for as many as you'd like on our website. They're all free, and we would love to see you there. So I'll leave you with stay safe and stay healthy out there, and we'll see you all in the next webinar.